The chairman of the board, Travis Woost, with Natural Bridge Caverns. From the Texas Restaurant Association San Antonio chapter, executive director Dawn Ann Larios. And finally, with the Cortez Family Restaurants, William Cortez. Hospitality is a $21 billion economic engine for our city that generates over $4.6 billion in payroll and contributes $227 million in tax revenue to San Antonio. We are proud to have gathered everyone here to discuss the future of hospitality in our city. At this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator, who will introduce our candidates and take us through the format of this debate. Scott Joslove has served as president and CEO of Texas Hotel Lodging Association for the past 25 years. In that time, THLA has grown from the 4th largest state hotel association to the largest state association in the nation, with over 6,000 lodging-related member businesses, from the smallest bed and breakfast to the largest convention center hotels. And since joining THLA, Scott and his staff have passed every legislative bill that they have offered over the past 25 years and have defeated every legislative initiative opposed by the lodging industry. Please help me welcome Scott Joslove.
Good morning. Thank you for the great honor of allowing me to moderate this very, very important event. As a longtime advocate for the hospitality industry, I know personally what tourism means to San Antonio. It's vital for our industry employees to hear the vision and leadership that's being offered by each of the mayoral candidates today, what their views are to promote tourism and the hospitality industry. With us today are two very impressive final candidates running for mayor of the city of San Antonio. Please help me to welcome to the stage Air Force veteran and former Undersecretary of the United States Air Force under the Biden administration, Ms. Gina Ortiz Jones. And also to welcome attorney and former Texas Secretary of State, Mr. Rolando Pablos.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We will begin today's program with candidate introductions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to briefly note their major qualifications and platform. After their introductions, we will ask each of the candidates a series of questions on issues directly impacting the San Antonio hospitality and tourism industry. For each question, we will rotate between candidates, and I will note whether you have 1 or 2 minutes to respond to the question at hand. If time allows, we will then go to the audience for questions. Afterwards, we will conclude the program with brief closing remarks from each candidate. We have a full program today and a lot of ground to cover, so we will be watching the time closely. We have our own Vanna White sitting up front, who will hold up a yellow sign when you have 15 seconds left to wrap up your remarks, and a red sign to say you have 5 seconds to conclude. Thank you, Vanna, also known as Michelle. Let's start with our candidate opening statements. We'll each have 2 minutes for those. I'm going to start with Secretary Pablos.
Good morning. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize the men and women who prepared our meals today and who are serving them. Can we have a round of applause for them, please? Muchas gracias por todo su trabajo. Gracias por servirnos el día de hoy. Gracias. You know, I remember when this beautiful hotel was built, when the Rivercenter Mall was built, when the Hyatt across the street was built. All those projects were visionary projects. They were controversial at a certain extent. People opposed them. But now look at what these projects have done for this community, for our tourism industry. I believe that what we need to do is we need to double down on projects like this, on projects that will improve our visitor environment. And I have the experience, not only in economic development, but I've studied hospitality. I've worked in hospitality. When I studied, I worked in restaurants, I worked in hotels. We were just talking about La Mansión del Norte. I was a bellman there. I washed dishes on St. Mary Street. I waited tables. That's how I met my wife. For me, hospitality is my passion. I understand it. I taught tourism at UTSA. I helped bring the Conrad Hilton College here to St. Paul Square. So if there's anyone who understands what you're going through and what you need, it is me. So I can't wait to work with you to improve our tourism industry and support our hospitality businesses here in town. So I look forward to our conversation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Secretary Jones, could you share your background and qualifications?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good morning. Thank you for hosting us. Thanks for this very important discussion as I look at many of the men and women that are making our economy move forward. And it's exciting as we look at what's possible in our community, largely driven by this sector. And I'm very cognizant of that. My entire career has been in public service. It has been about making sure that we are uplifting people that are serving our country, making sure they can serve to their full potential. And I look forward to bringing that mindset as well when we think about tourism. My time in public service, any country I've ever worked in or deployed to, you also see very clearly that if there isn't a strong middle class, that country isn't as doing well as they really should be doing, and their democracy probably isn't as strong as it could be. So when I think about the importance of the tourism sector, certainly it is important to our economy. I look forward to being a good partner. There isn't a better product than San Antonio. There isn't. And I look forward to making sure we bring good businesses here to make sure that we are strengthening the tourism sector, as well as making sure that, yes, the hard men and women working, serving us this morning also have the ability to enjoy our city. Right? One of the things you should know about me, my mom came to this country over 40 years ago. She graduated from the #1 university in the Philippines. She came here as a domestic helper. One of those experiences she had was working at a hotel. And I know each of us, when we were younger, we had a binky, right? My binky was a Sheraton bath towel because she worked at a Sheraton. And she told me this experience, and it always just reminded me, you got to stick up for yourself when it's important, and you got to treat everybody with dignity and with respect. She was a hotel cleaning lady. She knocked on somebody's door because they didn't have a do not disturb label on the thing. And she didn't hear anybody for a little bit, so she knocked again, and they yelled at her, and she said, they yelled at me like I was a dog, and they said, go away. So she came back later, she cleaned that room, and then she left a note, and she said, the only difference between you and me is you have money, and I do not. So when I think of, and she said, it's important that everybody in their plight, regardless of their plight in life, is treated with dignity and with respect. So I think we can bring good businesses to here to San Antonio and make sure the men and women doing the hard work are treated fairly and paid fairly as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go on to our subject matter questions. The first one deals with the overall growth of tourism. San Antonio has had the honor of being the #1 travel destination for many years in the state. However, recent data shows us losing our top ranking to other Texas cities like Austin and Fort Worth. We see the mayor of San Antonio as our biggest advocate in not only recruiting businesses, but also in promoting San Antonio as a convention, event, and tourism destination. What do you see as the mayor's role in promoting the growth of San Antonio as a convention, event, and tourism destination? And what are some special ways you would try to lead in that manner? Let me start out with Secretary Jones. You have 1 minute.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, the mayor is the face of the city. right? And I think it's really important that that face is talking in all rooms about all of the opportunities available in our community. So yes, we need to balance, again, the social, the military, the religious conferences that we bring here, but as we also look at some of our economic development initiatives to ensure that we are bringing corporations here, so we've got a good balance with our local negotiated contracts. That's a balance. I think it's also really important that the mayor talks not only, hey, this is what is happening downtown, this is what it looks like down there, but oh, by the way, if you wanted a different San Antonio experience, look at the South Side. I mean, I was just speaking with those folks that are managing the Embassy Suites down there, and then that's a different experience. So I think as mayor, I would look at, these are all the opportunities that we have downtown. This is what it looks like on the north side, this is what it looks like on the south side, and really working with you all to ensure we're bringing a diverse set here, as well as making sure we're bringing more of the high-end business travel here, which I know we struggle with at this point, but look forward to working with this group to understand how we can improve that.
Thank you. Secretary Pablos, same question. What do you see as your role in promoting tourism and hospitality?
You need a mayor who understands the industry, who's worked in the industry, and who's delivered for the industry, and that would be me. Not only do I have experience in economic development, but also tourism development. I've traveled with city leaders to talk to meeting planners, to sell our city to conventions. Convention goers want new things when they go to cities. They want to know what is new. What have you done lately that is going to encourage me to hire your city so we can bring our convention goers? I understand it. So not only do I have the experience in bringing these folks in, but also in shoring you up so that you have everything you need to be able to offer your services to our visitors. Look, this is the top industry, and yes, we are losing ground to other cities, and I'm not going to allow that to happen, and I want to work with each of you to make sure it doesn't.
Thank you. Our second question deals with downtown development, and specifically Project Marvel. Project Marvel presents an unprecedented opportunity to transform San Antonio with new venues, infrastructure, and significant economic impact. For our industry, Project Marvel initiatives like the Convention Center expansion, improvements to the Alamo Dome are critical to San Antonio's ability to be competitive as a destination. Project Marvel is also essential to our ability to attract major events like the NCAA Final Four, large concerts, and conventions that drive economic activity. Other cities within Texas and beyond are working at the same time to increase their capacity and amenities that are offered by their tourism facility. And if we don't expand and increase the asset amenities for our key tourism features, we risk losing our stature to cities like Austin, Houston, Fort Worth, and Dallas, and having them surpass us in securing major events. If we do lose those events, we lose millions of dollars in lost business, as well as the loss for countless other businesses that depend on tourism activity. It's important, and I would want to note that the funding for Project Marvel comes from primarily local hotel tax, which is a dedicated tax that can only be used to directly promote tourism in the hotel and convention industry. Our question today is, how critical to you are the components of Project Marvel, and are there any aspects of the plan that you do not support? And specifically, could you comment on the convention center expansion and the proposed Alamo Dome improvements as part of that initiative? Let me start out with Secretary Pablos.
Project Marvel, other than the name, I think is a wonderful idea. And the Critter Bridge, I don't know if I like that footbridge. We'll worry about that. But look, do we need expanded convention facilities? Yes. Do we need an entertainment district? Absolutely. Arena? Yes. And we got to stop vilifying the Alamo Dome. That thing's delivered for us so many times over and over again. Just with Final Four, it delivered $400 million in economic impact. So yes, we have to double down on all that. We have to make sure that we find the right mechanism for funding. But as mayor, it's going to be my job to set the foundation, to lay the groundwork, to attract private investment as well. But look, we have to make sure that we continue to compete with other cities. They're eating our lunch. We have to make sure that we have those amenities, including our airport situation, down pat so that we can attract the best of the best here. We can do it. And, you know, there isn't a better city for Final Four for sporting events. We've got everything that it takes, and I want to work with Centro. I want to work with every single one of you to make sure that happens. And so we'll put you to work because we got to get out there and sell San Antonio.
Secretary Jones, your comments on Project Marvel and the Alamo Dome and the Convention Center expansion, and if there are any other aspects of that plan that you support or do not support.
Yeah. So I think there's been this misconception that I do not support this project. I have just asked 3 very simple questions that I hear all the time, literally at every neighborhood association meeting that I go to. How much is it going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? And how is the city going to benefit? Okay. Answer to those questions so that Mrs. Martinez and Mr. Brown can understand how this is going to benefit them is really important. And I would argue, starting with the community benefit agreement to of understanding not only the Spurs arena, but ultimately how all of this benefits our entire city is where we should start. People want to support, anything that is good for San Antonio. I think they have to see it though, because when they see more of this and they say, well, traffic's already bad, I just had to pay $60 at that Alamo Dome parking for the event that also I can only go to once or twice a year, right? So I think part of this is how can we make sure that San Antonio, the city of San Antonio, gets a good deal, and we are making sure that we are cutting as many folks into this as possible, because again, this is a generational investment. How do we ensure as many of our small businesses are part of this as well? How can we negotiate to make sure people have a certain number of folks have a certain wage? These are all things that we should be also discussing and helping the people of San Antonio understand why this is a good thing. So look, I think it's important when we're also talking about this, it's not just that development, but again, how can we think about what's happening at our airport to make sure that we are bringing in that type, because it's not just the buildings and the structures themselves as to why we may be losing business to some of those other cities. So I think we have to think about this in the aggregate and make sure, again, the deal makes the most sense for San Antonio. So that's what I commit to doing, and I think that's what voters would expect.
Let me follow up. Do you have an opportunity to clarify, do you think that you, with those questions answered, could you be supportive of the Alamo Dome improvements and the Convention Center expansion?
I'm going to be supportive of any good deal for San Antonio. You can do both. These are not mutually exclusive, right? You can fight for a good deal for San Antonio that also accomplishes the things that you described, but you have to be able to explain it to voters. It's their money, and that's how I think we have to be able to talk about, because part of this, and I look forward to working with this community to understand that, is, hey, if we don't do this, then these are the things that we lose out at. Right now, they're just kind of talking points. There actually hasn't been a significant amount of information presented to folks to truly understand that piece. So I look forward to the continued discussions and then understanding why, explaining to the voters how investments in one area are better for our economy than they would be someplace else.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
May I have the opportunity as well to speak?
Follow up.
I think what's really important also as we talk about this is the infrastructure. Our firefighters need to have the facilities that they need in downtown, especially for big events like this. Our police department needs to be able to have that presence. So we also have to consider the public safety aspect of it. Right now, there really isn't that infrastructure, so that is not considered as part of this project. So what I would do is I would include public safety infrastructure as part of the project.
Thank you. Our next question deals with education and the workforce, and both of you made thoughtful and kind remarks about the entire mechanism of making an event work, which includes every aspect of our workforce. 1 in 8 citizens in San Antonio work in the hospitality industry. And we find our employers now are competing harder and harder to get our quality employees and to retain our quality employees. This means higher wages, medical insurance, 401k contributions, often bus passes, sometimes complimentary meals, even free room nights in order to keep and attract new employees. I can also say that I surveyed my 70-member board of directors and asked how many of y'all started as entry-level employees in the hospitality industry. Every one of the 70 did. When we look at our SOLIF, the folks here, I don't think there's a single general manager who didn't start out bussing tables or cleaning rooms or working the front desk. So there are more opportunities. What I've learned over 25 years is the opportunity to proceed and to matriculate and to advance into an ownership or into a management position in the hospitality industry is greater than any industry I've become aware of. We also provide opportunities where no other opportunities exist often for folks who English may not be their first language, where they're new to the country, they're new to the workforce, and we provide a welcoming opportunity. If you are elected mayor, please share with us how would you help us to promote the positive image of hospitality as a career to San Antonio residents? Let me start out with Secretary Pablos. You have 1 minute.
So, the other day we were at a debate, I can't even remember, we've had so many, but one of the moderators actually chastised me for promoting our industry, for saying that I want to promote this industry. And she said, why would you want to promote low-wage, low-skilled jobs? And what I said to her is like, look, we've all started at the very bottom. This industry provides an opportunity for us to grow into managerial positions and, most importantly, entrepreneurship. So this whole issue of this being low wage, low skill, and that we can't really invest in this, I think is ridiculous. We have to support the entire industry and support that upward process for everybody, because you're right, I started out washing dishes and I became Secretary of State. I'm an attorney, and everybody here who is managing did the same thing. You can't manage a restaurant if you've never washed dishes. You can't manage a hotel if you've never cleaned rooms. So we have to support the entire industry, and I will do that.
Secretary Jones, help us to share with us how you would promote hospitality as a career.
Yeah, one of my, actually one of my first jobs was as a server at Acadiana. I don't know if you all remember Acadiana off 410 in Marbach. Unfortunately, Dave Saylor in that restaurant has closed. But yeah, I learned a lot from that experience. Frankly, every day that I did that motivated me to make sure I completed my degree. You had many folks I was working alongside those tips were how they were getting by, and they were in their mid-60s. So I had to really, again, when we think about, it's not that there is anything wrong with people starting, at the bottom and working their way up. It's when the bottom doesn't allow you to pay your rent. It's when the bottom doesn't allow you to be able to provide for your kids that is the challenge. It was the KSAT debate. So look, I think it's important in this industry that we're also taking care, as mentioned. We had a nice discussion at the hotel the other day with many of the folks in this industry. Yes, also rightly concerned with, unfortunately, some of how the workers are impacted by some of the immigration-related activities that are also, I think, a mayor's role is important to speak up at how this is impacting our industry. This is a great field, and I think we want to make sure people can pursue, a trajectory of understanding that the vast majority of folks, though, are not going to be the general manager, right? So we've got to make sure people have a path, and throughout that are able to sustain themselves and their families.
Thank you very much. Our next, and I would note for the record, I started as a dishwasher, and the head chef told me if I didn't learn to wash dishes better, I would not be invited to dinner. All right, question number 4 deals with safety and security. Safety and security within our city is regularly cited as a top issue for both visitors and residents. Car break-ins, aggressive panhandling, and a series of shootings have led to increased levels of concern for our guests, for our downtown employees, and for our area residents. What initiatives would you advocate to effectively address criminal activity in the downtown and other quadrants of our city, as well as the issue of homelessness? And I want to specifically point out that we do not believe that homelessness is synonymous with criminal activity. They're two separate issues that face our communities. We would like to offer 2 minutes to answer. Ms. Secretary Jones.
Yeah. I appreciated actually the conversation I had with Trish DeBerry to understand, how Centro accomplishes what they do, and to understand that 2/3 of their budget, just like the general fund, 2/3 of their budget goes toward public safety. I appreciate the ways in which that program brings in folks that, frankly, have traditionally maybe had a little bit of a tougher plight in life and are now being helpful to make sure that our city is safe and is welcoming. I think the unhoused challenge is not only a challenge for our tourists. feeling unsafe. It's also very challenging for the small businesses that are downtown that unfortunately have to, deal with cleaning bodily fluids each morning, as I have heard, unfortunately, from a number of folks. So each of these things we have to understand, not only is it a function of those that are unhoused, which is why we have to invest in other things, right? We have to invest in prevention and invest in the solutions to allow those folks a path to become housed. In terms of criminal activity, I think it's really important we invest in technological solutions that would allow us to have better warning of what's going on there, as well as ensure that we've got sufficient law enforcement. I've been very clear that when we think about our budget, even though we're entering into a fiscally challenging environment, that we fund those no-fail missions. And again, it's critical not only for the folks that are living downtown, but also for the safety of our tourists and of the businesses that are there. So that's how we focus on it.
Thank you. Secretary Pablos, your comments on addressing criminal activity, addressing homelessness as two major concerns.
Yeah, look, it boils down to enforcement. And for whatever reason, we haven't wanted to enforce. The rules are there, the laws are there, but we're not enforcing. And it's not a lack of compassion when we say that we have to enforce the rules, especially panhandling and all that. We just have to do it. We have to do it. We have to take care of what we need to take care of so that we can make our city attractive not only to investment but to visitors. And what's happening right now is that we're not enforcing. I'm happy to have the endorsement of our Police Officers Association. Thank you, Adrian, very much for that endorsement. I want to work with our police officers to make sure that they also have the backing of our community so they can go do those things that sometimes are unpopular. But this isn't about popularity. This is about making sure that we have a presentable city, presentable downtown, and when people are afraid to come to downtown, then it's a losing proposition. We lost 4 tourists last summer. Right here, right around here. We can't do that. So I want to work with our police officers, our firefighters, EMS, give them the budget that they need, not the one that we say, the one that they need, so they can help you, help us accomplish this very difficult task. For some reason, we haven't gotten there. But under my administration, we'll get there because we're going to be able to enforce and also fund what is needed to be able to have a great city.
Thank you. As a result of limited city resources, Centro San Antonio has had to take on a larger role. They've funded off-duty police. They cover the gaps between police shifts. They've funded cameras in the downtown area. But the funding crisis also applies to the city, as both of you mentioned. There's an impending city budget deficit. And what priority will you be able to, your administration, give to funding safety? And how will you decide what is the appropriate share for Centro and what's the appropriate share and role for the city? Let me start out with Secretary Pablos.
Well, Centro is doing a great job. Technically, Centro shouldn't even exist because it should be the city who takes care of all those things that Centro is taking care of, and yet we're outsourcing that to the private sector. So if we are going to play that way, then we need to also help Centro take care of what the city is not taking care of. And I'm all in. I said it before. We're not going to defund the police or fire. And by the way, there are different ways of defunding police. It's not just with money. It's by taking away obligations and other things. So defunding the police is a real thing, and we're not going to do it under my administration. I'm going to work with Eric to look at that budget deficit and get over that, but make sure that police and fire are off limits. And in addition to cuts that are going to be needed, I want to work on the top line. How about bringing in new tax revenue without taxing us anymore? And that requires bringing in visitors here that are going to spend money here, bringing investment here. So I will be working on that, and I have the experience, proven experience, in bringing in investment to communities. I did it for the state of Texas. I can do it here.
Thank you. Secretary John, and let me ask the audience, let's hold off on our applause till the end. if we can. Secretary Jones, could you comment on your views on public safety and how to balance that role between Centro and the city with the budget deficit at the city?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we have local law enforcement focused on addressing the most violent crimes in our community. I do not believe local law enforcement should be used as ICE agents in our community. I'm the only one up here that has said that. Okay? I think it's really important if they are doing those things that aren't focused, again, on keeping us safe, addressing the violent crimes, then we are more susceptible to those. There aren't extra police somewhere, right, ready to just come in and fill those gaps. So we need folks focused on the violent crimes that are impacting our community. When it comes to Centro, though, one of the things I'm really excited about is implementing some of the other things that they've discussed, right? The goal, as I understand now, obviously this is going to be modified based on some of the other projects, but the goal is to go to 25,000 folks downtown. We're only at 12,500. Great, let's make sure we've got a diversity of housing that supports folks that are high wages as well as those working valet at Hotel Valencia. They want to make sure that 75% of the storefronts downtown are local small businesses. Great, let's do that. Right, this really gets back to kind of how do we understand what contributes to public safety concerns, and that's when people don't have a living sufficient wages to take care of themselves. So let's cut people in. Let's create the plan that brings more of our small businesses downtown. I mean, the other part of that is making sure all basic services are within 2 miles. Great. Let's work on those types of things. So it's not just the public safety aspect of it. There's a number of other things that Central Plan is driving forward on, and I look forward to leading on that as well.
Thank you so much. Our next question is about construction challenges. I would like to note, and Michelle would like to note, it took her 45 minutes to get here to the seminar.
And she lives 2 miles away, right?
She was 2 miles away. And I drove in the night before to avoid that problem. With the growth of our city, it presents opportunities, but it also presents this challenge with regard to traffic. How would you hold construction contractors accountable to the city, and what other measures would you use to try to address the issue of being able to get across from one part of the city to another part of the city? Let me start out with Secretary Jones.
Yeah. Well, when I think about, the construction, the delays, I mean, that's really tough, as I've heard from many small businesses, the challenges that they have with keeping their doors open because of the delayed construction. And we were just at the Kimpton. As I understand, they lose $1 million a month because of that construction right in front. So it's important, I think, first and foremost, that we as a city and the city staff are really thinking about how much money are we losing as a result of these things not being done on time, right? And so the intent there is then to minimize that to ensure that those businesses can be open and be operating at a level that is at maximum capacity. I think it's also important when we're thinking about mobility, though, yeah, we think about what is that guided in part by that Central Plan. If you want to double the number of people that are going to live downtown, that can't be double the number of cars, right? So what does that mean for VIA? And maybe they're not all the same size buses that they are now. What are those micro mobility options? And certainly, where are some parts of our downtown that are going to go straight to, to carless, right? We have to be bold in that way. I think that's what visitors, and they come from other parts of the country, are looking at, expecting at, and frankly, that also is just going to make sense given the infrastructure that we have downtown. So I think we can do all of those at the same time that we're also looking at, supporting, again, those micro-mobility options that are good not only for tourists getting around, but also are the expectations of people that are coming to live and want to live in an urban core for exactly those kinds of benefits.
Thank you. Secretary Pablos, your thoughts about infrastructure and the challenges it presents to transportation and getting across town, and what mobility projects would you suggest?
Yeah, rather than just offering observations, let me offer some solutions, very practical solutions. First, we got to stop giving contracts to low bidders only. We can't go there. We have to make sure that the people who are bidding on these contracts can actually get the work done. We have to stop scapegoating underground utilities and things that we didn't know were there and all that. Those are just excuses for not finishing contracts on time. We actually have to get tough on our contracts themselves. I will work with our city attorney to make sure that we have bulletproof contracts that hold contractors' feet to the fire. And then we have to work with development services and construction, our city management team, to make sure that we give them the tools they need to become more effective and efficient, because right now As we can see downtown, there's no efficiency and there is a lack of effectiveness. I call it insensitive street construction. We go fix streets, repair streets. Pete, you know, you've had construction in front of your restaurant for 3 years. Insensitive. We can't do that because what that is doing is just frustrating our small businesses, our hotels, everything, attractions here in town. We saw what happened with Final Four, the money that was wasted, you know, covering streets and tearing them back up on our dime. So we can't do that anymore, and I will make sure that I offer very practical and pragmatic solutions like this example that I just gave you.
Thank you. That concludes our set questions. At this time, I'd like to take questions from the audience for each candidate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. Is there a question from the audience that we have planted for Secretary Pablos? Oh, one.
Is that for me? Yes. Well, the first criteria I would do is actually establish criteria for qualifications. We have to make sure that whenever we're appointing individuals, citizens to these boards and commissions, that we have minimum standards, that we have standards that allow us to ensure that the individuals are qualified, that they understand the industry, hopefully that they're part of the industry or at least they've been in the industry, because there's absolutely no way that someone without business experience can empathize with the industry because they don't know how it works. They don't know the inner workings. So the first thing I would do is make sure they're qualified.
Secretary Jones, would you like to respond to that question as well?
I would focus on those folks that can help us bring in more of that high-end business diversity, as I think we talked about at the breakfast that we had. I'd also want to make sure that we are bringing in those folks that in particular can help us really lean into the arts and our gastronomy here in the community. I was just at the 43rd Conjunto Festival at Rosedale. That was amazing, and a real treasure in our community. Over half the folks there are not from San Antonio. They're from all over. And so as we think about those really kind of niche things that we have in our community, those are excellent opportunities to make sure that we are bringing them to San Antonio, not just during Fiesta, but also making sure that we extend kind of the length of those visits, right? I think when we talked at the breakfast, the length of the average visit right now is about 2.4 days. How can we get that closer to 3.5, 4? And I think you do that with those kind of niche experiences that really lean into, again, our gastronomy, city of gastronomy, as well as those more localized things that people really want to appreciate when they come to our city and that are unique to San Antonio.
Thank you. Is there a random question from the audience for Secretary Jones that we might have planted?
True, false.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I work in the energy industry. San Antonio was brought up here for energy. So can you talk a little bit about how you would a lot of and we came in to work here and ended up living here.
I'd welcome kind of, if there's an understanding of what particular is looking for, but I think things, which how can folks appreciate the local experience, what's a nice vacation stay, et cetera. I don't know if it's necessarily specific to a sector. What I think is important, though, is the point that you just made, which is I came here, I saw it, and I stayed. When I had my conversation with the Greater SATX folks, and they showed me their little circle, their phases, right, of businesses here, really, it's when people get here, local. So, as Mary, we were talking earlier about, hey, what's your role in this? My role is to help make sure we get to that phase, because as they said, once we're bringing corporations here and we're in that last phase of now they come visit, they stay. So I think that's an important piece, not only of what you just described, but also making sure that when we land them, we are thinking also about those local negotiated contracts, agreements rather, that would allow for additional business beyond the presence that they're bringing.
Thank you. Secretary Pablos, would you like to respond as well?
Sure. Look, it's important to work in tandem in attracting new investment and attracting visitors. But look, the other day we were asked how we would use the budget money and all that, and one of the things I failed to say, and I'd like to say today, is I want to work on a beautification project, spending money and cleaning up our city, because especially in downtown, this is the first place many visitors get to see. This is the impression they get of us. And cleaning up our city, citywide, all 10 districts, should be a top priority. We need to spend money cleaning up trash, cleaning up weeds. Look at, some of these roads have trash all over them. Let's take pride in our city. And I know it's going to need money to do that, and I want to be able to segregate funds to be able to clean up, get our community involved, and initiate a process of thinking with pride about our city. You see trash, pick it up. You see weeds, pull them, take care of all that. We have to do that downtown. Our Riverwalk needs repairs. That is one of our crown jewels. We need to spend money in making sure that the Riverwalk is top notch. So beautification is going to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is our time that you've all been looking forward to, the concluding remarks. I'll make mine first, and then we'll be coming to each of you. First of all, I want to express my personal and on behalf of Saul and all the other program partners, thank you for being here. I can't tell you how important the mayoral role is to tourism and promoting San Antonio. It truly is the way we welcome and we promote our industry as a premier opportunity. When you support tourism, you're not only supporting hotels and restaurants and all the other aspects of hospitality, but every other business that benefits from that sector. I'd like to thank the wonderful Loris Menfee and the Marriott Rivercenter for hosting this event and for giving me the presidential suite. That's very important to tourism across the state of Texas. Because trust me, I'm not passing that bill if I'm not in the right room. Oh yeah, I'm passing the bill, and I didn't have the presidential suite, and I'm bitter. Let's also have a round of applause for the servers and event staff. They truly made this event possible. I like to say no at the bottom in our industry. They may start at the beginning, they may start at the entry, but we are all at the same level. Thank you to our friends at Encore for providing the audio-visual support and for your sponsorship of this event. I'd like to thank Visit San Antonio and Mario. Centro San Antonio. San Antonio Hotel and Lodging Association, or as we say, SALA. And take a moment to say, does Michelle not do an incredible job here for this association? I get to work with a lot of people. Few give me as much joy as working with Michelle. The San Antonio Visitor Alliance. San Antonio chapter of the Texas Restaurant Association. Now, very, very important reminder is early voting begins Tuesday, May 27th through Tuesday, June 3rd. During this time, you can vote at any polling location. Am I correct?
That's right.
All right, and the election day is Saturday, June 7th. We're looking forward to seeing you at the poll. At this point, I want to make those reminders before we ask for closing.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's so good to see so many friends. I'm one of you. I've seen it, I've lived it, I know it. And so now I want to translate that into a leadership position that can actually make a difference. I come in with experience not only in government, but in business, as a small business owner, having worked in hospitality in the corporate arena, and also as an economic developer. I've been doing economic development for 25 years. I've developed hotels right for, 2 blocks from here. So I understand what is needed. I understand our community. And I also understand the tourists that we need to be attracting, the visitors that we need to go out and get. So I will provide that support that you need, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Secretary Jones, your closing statements, please.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to spend some time with you all this morning. Thank you for hosting us, this very important discussion, and truly, thank you for what you do to make sure that this sector is as strong as it can be in our city, and I look forward to being a good partner with you on that, to make sure that we move forward with everybody in mind. It's really important, I think, that we are bringing as much business as we can. I think you heard me here talk not only about what is possible as I see it downtown, but as we're also experiencing so much growth all throughout our city. I mentioned on the south side. I think it's also important, and you'll find in me a partner that makes sure that, hey, when tourism and some aspects of this industry are struggling, for example, I was just talking with some of the folks at the Drury Hotel, and when we think about some of the federal implications of tariffs and other things that are impacting, medical tourism, for example, you would have in me an ally that is going to fight to bring, again, business here, bring conventions here, but also when we need to speak about ways in which either at the federal level or at the state level, those things are actually constraining our tourism industry. So I look forward to being a good partner and working with y'all moving forward. Thank you.
And now probably one of our most important thank you. First of all, let's recognize both candidates. As a moderator, it's truly an honor to have 2 candidates that are so well suited and will provide such an embarrassment of leadership for us as an industry. So we thank you and look forward to working with each of you. I will tell you that we also want to thank all of you. This is a sold-out audience. Thank you for showing up and showing people that the hospitality industry delivers. And the candidates may, if they have time, stay around for a few minutes to visit with each of you. If you have a moment, they may have other appointments they need to go to. Their schedules are pretty tight, but this adjourns our meeting. Thank you so much.